Hello, welcome back to the CashPT Lunch Hour podcast. This is your host, Aaron LeBauer, and today my special guest is Dr. Julie Sergent, and Julie is from Louisville, Kentucky?
Kentucky, yes.
Oh yeah, that's awesome. So, another Southerner, you might not know it.
Kentucky Derby.
Yeah, that's
right.
Everybody
knows our city.
So I brought her on the show because she's a successful cash practice owner. She's gone through some ups and downs that I've witnessed over the last few years, and I wanted to bring her on to share her success story with you so that you could be inspired to be successful and create a business for yourself. So Julie, thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
That was awesome. So let's start off from the beginning. You were born some time ago. You went to high school and college. Was there a point at which that, early on, that you said, oh, yeah, I want to be a PT, or how did you even get into this industry?
Yes, for sure. There was a point. So I consider myself one of the lucky ones that in going into college, I knew exactly what I wanted to do. Mm-hmm. And actually in third grade, I wrote this little book. It was a little laminated project, and I wrote a little excerpt on kind of how I saw my future, and I put that I wanted to be a physical therapist in that, which is a little shocking because there was a time period where I forgot I had even done that. And I stumbled upon it, and it's just pretty cool. But the way I knew I wanted to be a PT, and the way I even knew what that was when I was young, my mom nannied for a family. So from the time I was a baby to the time I went into preschool, I was with her on that job. And one of the children was involved in an accident that left her with a traumatic brain injury. So she had to undergo a lot of just speech, occupational, physical therapy. So I tagged along on all of those visits. So I was exposed to the benefits of PT before I even really had a grasp on what it was. So that was a really cool experience. And I would say really the main reason why I even went on this path.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And so was that your goal, in high school, college? You're I'm going to a college where I can go into PT, and is that?
Yes. So I started at University of Louisville, and the PT program that was nearby that I had intended on going to didn't have, let me start over. So I went there for a year, and I took all prerequisites that I knew would transfer over. So I didn't end up wasting any time. And I was able to get all the credits transferred. And at the time, my PT school, I went to Bellarmine, and they had a preferential placement. So actually about your second semester in, you accumulated enough credits to get your bachelor's. So I was able to graduate a little quicker so I guess collectively, that took about 5.5 years, as opposed to a 4 plus another 2.5 or 3. So that was cool. I took a lot of summer classes and just put my nose down and just knew I wanted to get it done so I could get out and start working.
That's awesome. In your PT program, were you one of the few people that knew exactly what they wanted to do? Because my experience was, even in our first anatomy lab, was 2 of my 3 partners were I don't know why I'm here. That was what are you talking about?
I found I always knew, but because in high school I volunteered, and I had PT tech jobs at different clinics through high school and early college. So I knew going in I wanted to do outpatient. I knew that was the thing. But it was shocking to me that a couple people that I went to school with, a few, I guess there was one that stopped midway. There's one girl that I was really good friends with. She actually chose a completely different career path. So yeah, there were definitely those people. And I was just, again, I feel very lucky that I went through all of that education and I'm using it.
That's awesome. So you graduated, and then did you know at that time you were going to open your own business, or were you just I'm going to get a job, I'm going to work with kids or athletes or whatever?
No intention on opening my own business. I didn't really explore that as an option. When we were in PT school, a few directors of different settings came and spoke to us, but at no point was that the culture or a pathway that was even presented. We had one business class, but so it was almost they're they prepared us in a lot of ways, but they did not prepare us, which I don't know that they could have, for, you know, I guess how chiropractors go to school, and most of them are opening their own practices when they get out. And PTs, I don't think that's really the way they present it. So,
yeah. Do you think that, I mean, do you think that they should change that, or do you think it's, you know,
oh gosh, I guess it would be difficult because the program has to have so much content already, every PT program. And I think a lot of them are extending to 3 years now. But I don't necessarily think that needs to be a huge component. I just sometimes wish it was talked about a little bit more, but.
Yeah. Why you brought up the chiropractors? Like, I think about this all the time. Like, why do you think the chiropractors are more inclined to open their own business than a physical therapist?
I don't know. That's a good question.
Because like you work with one, right? You know, like, is there a, do you ever thought, have you thought like,
I think it originated that way. I feel like probably because traditionally you don't have chiropractors in hospital settings. And if like Medicare and CMS is driving all of that, physical therapy is a specialty that's in hospital settings, and it's, you know, used in nursing homes. And so I think because it's more of, it's not considered an alternative medicine, but I guess they already start out with that kind of backdrop. That may be why their education includes a little bit of that, like how to, because when they get out, they're not necessarily going to have hospitals and places to apply for jobs. So maybe that's why.
Yeah. Do you think that made it harder for you to find your business and your business path, or was it just like, was there something else that happened between when you graduated and started your business that like really triggered things for you?
Like as in why I wanted to open my own?
Yeah. Like, so why'd you want to open yours? And do you think that not having not having as much information on it in school, you know, affected your journey, you know, to opening a business?
So when I first got out, I knew I wanted to do outpatient, and the majority of my time was spent at working for the Army. I wasn't active duty, but I was a staff outpatient physical therapist for an Army hospital, and that was like the ultimate job to me because you had autonomy. You were able to order your own studies and consults if you needed to, and it was like kind of with all my jobs, I dodged having to work with insurance and having to deal with like pre-authorization or visit approval, because you don't have to do that in the military setting. You do have productivity though, you know, so I'm seeing up to 17 people a day, and it's all follow-ups and evaluations. And at one point they cut our evaluation time down to like 30 minutes. And it was just, I would always be stuck after work for 2 hours doing documentation because I wanted to talk to my patients and I wanted to get to know them. And, you know, I wasn't going to just cut that short. And so I think there came a point when I realized, like, number one, I was driving an hour to and from this job. And I knew I wasn't going to be able to do this for 20, 25 years, what it would take to actually get the benefit of having that government job. And they were taking away more and more of the benefits. And I also couldn't accelerate there because I wasn't active duty. So I knew, okay, I need to kind of make a change. And actually, a major that was a huge mentor and influence in what I know now was actually the one that kind of sparked this cash-based PT or performance, like blending the two together. Him and I started talking, and he told me about some of, like, you and Dr. Jared Carter and some of the people that I started like listening to, and kind of being like, oh, okay, this is a thing. Maybe it's not here, but it's a thing somewhere. So I just started to learn more about it. And then we were actually going to open something together, and he got a job he couldn't turn down. So then I was kind of left, like, I knew I would have left that job anyways at the military hospital, but it was kind of like, okay, you're going to keep moving forward with this, or you're going to go work for somebody else. And so when I left the Army hospital, I went into a home health job because I knew that was going to be like the only way, the easiest way at least, to build my practice.
Right.
So I ended up having my first office inside of a CrossFit gym that was more like a closet. it was tiny.
Mm-hmm.
And I was there for a year. I worked full-time home health, and I had like negotiated that up front so that I had 4 working days. And I also fully disclosed everything to my supervisor there. And when I interviewed and everything, you know, this is what I'm doing. So it was good because there was no conflict of interest.
Mm-hmm.
And I just, so yeah. So then I just started kind of building things on my own.
So you were working for the government, which is one of, I mean, one of my classmates went and worked at, I think at Fort Bragg, and it's great because you have autonomy. You can order some medications and imaging, and you don't have a lot of people looking over your shoulder, which is pretty awesome. So, but you went from that, it was an hour away. It didn't provide you like career advancement because you weren't active duty. And was there something else that was that you were struggling with there that caused you to move like to cash-based, or reason you didn't go and open like an in-network clinic?
I think I didn't consider in-network because of the people that I was looking to for information. So the people I was following, the leaders in like opening your own practice, and the idea of blending PT and like performance or strength and conditioning. That is probably the big reason why I didn't explore an insurance-based. Yeah. And also just because, like I said, in my jobs, I didn't have to navigate that and do all of the minutes and just all the hoops that we know you have to jump through to accept insurance and to please the insurance companies. And so I guess that's why I thought, you know, I have no interest in going down this road and learning this.
Yeah. So
that sounds more painful than
it sounds really painful to me. I'm like, why is it so painful? Like what didn't you want to deal with?
You know, knowing that I wanted to be a physical therapist from a really young age and just being like excited about it and everything that I had poured into it, I just couldn't wrap my head around the idea that I was going to be treating people the way an insurance company deemed it necessary, or that I was going to be working along the lines of more like counting my RVUs or units and productivity and letting that impact. I found that it has to impact the way you treat people. And so I wasn't able to I was losing my passion for the career because of all of those guidelines and those, and I worked in a lot of different settings, and it's just different the way it's enforced in acute care versus like a skilled nursing or outpatient. So I think,
Yeah, cool. So you made this decision to start your own business,
mm-hmm.
got a part-time home health gig, right? And then you opened up in a closet in a CrossFit gym.
Yes.
Right. And how'd you make that relationship with the CrossFit box? Were you already working out there? Did you approach them? You know, how'd you get up there?
That's interesting too. So it was a massage therapist that I had met, and he massaged out of another non-CrossFit gym. And he was opening his own CrossFit gym. So it was kind of like the timing was right. You know, I just found out that the major had gotten that job and we weren't going to move forward. And I can't remember who called who, but it was like, hey, you need an office? I've got it. So it was basically under construction. And so I kind of jumped in. It's like, yeah, let's do it. And helped kind of get that place up, you know, painting and like hanging pictures, and just, it was a little gym. But I was there for about a year. Mm-hmm. And so I worked out there, but infrequently. And I had, my second office was actually in a CrossFit gym too, but.
So you mean you had 2 offices at the same time, or you moved from there to another CrossFit gym?
After that lease was up, I moved to another CrossFit gym.
Okay. Why was that? Was it a better opportunity, bigger space, something else?
You know, well, number one, I didn't have a coach. Uh-huh. So I wasn't making decisions for the right reasons. I was doing the best I could with what I had. Yeah. So what happened was from the first office to the second office, I was actually in a kinesiotaping course and met somebody there. And so the gym was getting sold is what was going down. The gym was getting sold. Their new location wasn't going to have a spot ready for me. So I was going to have to build out that spot and invest. And I was also entertaining opening this clinic for a pain management doctor, and kind of had, I know there was a lot going on during this time. And so I think instead of going on my own and like actually finding an office space on my own, because looking back, it's like, well, that would make the most sense.
Right.
I was looking for things that were existing and that I could easily just insert myself in. And it was less of a commitment. Just, that portion of rent and being in that environment seemed like, well, this makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
These people need me. Maybe they don't know it yet, but this is a great blend. Like, it's kind of the, I guess the alternative to me opening like the strength and conditioning and the physical therapy business. I was just kind of like trying to make that what I wanted it, maybe.
Would you, and you stayed there for a little bit, but you're not still in the CrossFit gym, right? Right. So so how long did you stay at the next one? And while we're there, how long did you stay there? And then what were some of the pros and cons of being associated with the CrossFit gym?
So I was at the second one for 1 year. And while I was at the second one, I was introduced to a chiropractor that worked with a lot of the athletes at that gym. And he was looking for a physical therapist that was kind of outside of the box and worked similarly to me. Him and I started exchanging treatment on each other. And so that relationship started. And so about halfway through that second year lease, I started, I had a second office. And so I was renting space from the chiropractor. So I started out doing that like every Monday. I would be there, and the other days. And this was also, I was doing the home health jobs still too. And then I went up to like Mondays and Fridays. And then after that year lease was up, it was about the time I found out I was pregnant, and I didn't want to have two offices. I was really coming up on the end of the home health job and being able to just kind of like let that fizzle out and go all into my business. So, and that was 2015, late 2015. So since 2015 to October of last year, I rented space from the chiropractor office, and he offered services. He had massage therapy himself, and then we had a little gym space. So it was just me for a while. And then in May of 2017, I hired my first like contract worker, and she helped me with front desk. And so we just had her set up in the hallway. Like it was just very like piecemeal together. It wasn't something that, I'm proud of it in the sense that I did it all, but it wasn't like what I wanted.
What did you want?
My own space. And just, I wanted a bigger gym to be able to offer personal training and grow.
What would you do differently if you went back to do it again? What would you do differently during those few years?
I don't know that I would do anything different when it comes. I feel like you have to go down certain paths to know that it's not right for you. And I met a lot of people and I learned a lot. So I don't know that I necessarily would have done anything different other than get a coach to kind of help me make some of those decisions and to feel more secure in the decisions.
If you were doing it, like starting it over or advising someone, is that what you would advise them to do, get a coach? Or is there something else you'd say, hey, I'm starting over from scratch today, or I'm starting, you're doing this?
That's a good question. So I would say to not go into where it's going to be easy, or you think, okay, CrossFit, it sounds like a gold mine of patience there.
Right.
Everybody's moving inefficiently and lifting things they shouldn't be. So it was like the patients are all right here in this little bubble, but that's really not the reality. So I think not going somewhere for the wrong reasons would be the advice I would give.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so now the other thing I want to go back. So you had a baby back in what, 2015 or 2016?
2016, July 2016.
What did you do during that time? Because I'm sure there's a lot of other women and moms out there who are like, well, I'm having a baby. It's not a good time to start a business, or I'm starting a business. What do I do? Like, or do I just shut the thing down, for a few months while I can't, like, how did you navigate that time in your life with owning a business?
So it was crazy. I looking back in life, I do a lot of like big life things all at once, it seems like, and not even super intentional. It just happens. So we built a house during that time too. And sold a house, moved into an apartment. Later in our apartment lease, found out we were pregnant, extended that a little bit, built a house. I moved offices. Like, a lot was going on. I navigated it. Oh, and I was blowing up. I was busy.
Yeah.
I was seeing like 25, 30 people a week. And I just planned it that I knew I was going to take 8 weeks off, and it happened. We moved into our house. It was not done on time as usual, I think, with that. And so we closed on a Friday evening, and that Monday was the end of my 8 weeks. So I had to go back to work. So it was like, first world problems. Like, I moved into a new house and I didn't get to unpack all my stuff. But it was stressful. I didn't get that nesting time, and there was a lot of moving parts.
Yeah.
And so I would say don't wait, because there's so many other things that you can do, especially these days, not being like present. So online and consulting and that sort of thing. So I would ask people not to wait. If you want to open a business, there's always going to be life events and things that come up. Just do it.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so what kept you going during, you were hustling. So what was the thing that kept you going and doing all that, like working on the house, the business, you got the baby, like that's time intensive. Like what is the thing that keeps you up at night and make sure that you continue moving forward, even though you're encountering, challenges and lots of
I had good family support. My husband's always supported this direction, and when I wanted to open a business, I had support, but now knowing the support I have, I didn't back then have like the support I really needed. What kept me going is I knew that there wasn't another option. So like once I went out on my own, and I had also just was lucky that I worked in a lot of different settings. I worked in a private owned outpatient clinic. I knew like there were options, and there were other options that might work for people, but I was always the one that, like, if there was some kind of like problem, in the meeting, or, I was like the one that would speak up, like, well, why are we doing it this way? And so I guess little things like that would come up to where I'm like, if I want it to be my way, then I need to create it.
Yeah. Yeah. So do you feel like you're unemployable? Is that, like, could you go get a job somewhere and be happy?
And be happy? No.
Yeah.
So I guess the answer is yes. I think too, just knowing that what I can offer people is much different in the managed care setting, and the frustration of what some people go through and the path they take to get well and to get better.
Yeah.
It's frustrating for me. Yeah. So I guess what little impact I can make, one patient at a time, is worth it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. And so since 2016, you hired, who did you hire? Kendra first or someone else in 2017?
I hired Stephanie first.
Stephanie first. Okay.
Which is now the reintegration specialist.
Yeah.
But I hired her, and actually the way her and I met, she started as a patient. I saw her mom And then I saw her, and she's a weightlifter and does Olympic lifting. And she was getting ready for a competition, and she had a competition like 3 weeks out, and came and saw me for her shoulder, and just kind of, she was just always intrigued and interested in kind of the way the business worked, and valued what I did with her and her family. And so one day she came in for like a tune-up treatment, and I think it was shortly after I came back from maternity leave, and she's just like, "Are you still looking for somebody?" And I'm like, "Yes, thank you." So then she started working, say like 10 or 15 hours, just doing kind of the calls and the front desk stuff. And then I guess it was about a year later. So you and I started in 2018?
Yeah, like January 2018.
That March. So March of 2018, I hired Kendra. Mm-hmm. And that was when I was looking for an office manager. So I used her hiring automation, and it worked beautifully. And instead of like 100 resumes in my inbox, because I started it like that, and was like, who has time for this? It's like such a funny place to be when you're like, okay, I need help, but I don't have time to find the help. Like, right. This is ridiculous. So I got 3 applicants that actually like did all the steps, like the video and everything. And so once I hired Kendra, she was hired on at 20 to 25 hours a week. Mm-hmm. And then Stephanie and I, for about a year leading up, or 6 months or so leading up, her and I were always meeting with always the intention of, okay, you're going to transition into this role when we're ready. And right. So it's kind of like developing the idea of her position, just the position itself. What is that going to look like? And yeah.
That's awesome. And so now you've got an assistant, you've got a patient care specialist, someone that's like administrative, you've got a reintegration specialist who does like performance training, strength training, like between PT and sending them back to like their gym, CrossFit, etc. That's awesome. And you're treating patients.
Yes.
That's awesome.
So I'm the only physical therapist.
Yeah. So how does that can you talk just for a minute about how you're doing that? You're blending the PT and performance, and are you still also kind of like in the what's the word for it? Do you still have like a relationship with the chiropractor that you were renting from? Because you guys.
Oh, yes. So my setup now is, so we moved into this office in October of last year. So we're coming up on a year almost. Awesome. And this would be what I would call my first like real office space. So like sign on the door and the front desk. I have 2 offices, and then another kind of like pseudo office. Doesn't have a door, and like with the construction process, things got moved around, but that's where Stephanie works. Mm-hmm. And then my office is actually connected to the gym. So that was cool to be able to kind of lay things out. So I have 2 doors to my office. So the back door, I can just like, okay, at the end of the session, we go into the gym and do exercises. But the way it's set up is the chiropractor is on one end of the building, mm-hmm. adjacent to my end. So we each have our own separate entrances, separate waiting rooms. And basically my lease is my space, and then I sublease the gym and the break room and bathrooms from him. Uh-huh.
Okay, cool. That's awesome.
So we could go days without seeing each other, which is funny. You know, it's like we get a chance to chat usually at least mm-hmm. once or twice a week. So, and his business is, he sees probably, 30-40% personal injury. Mm-hmm. And then it's insurance based. So he has cash paying clients, but it's a completely different business model than what I have. Right.
And so since you moved into that space almost a year ago, like what's changed? Like, did that shift things for you? Was there something else that shifted things for you, in the last few years? I mean,
as in like
business, like, it's like, I wonder, like, did that change your business, or is there something else that has had a bigger, like what are the steps that have had a big impact in your business that have put you forward so you can, like feel comfortable hiring someone or fill their schedule or fill your schedule? I mean, like, is there some other things that have happened?
Let's see. Well, definitely starting with you and having a coach. And I think just having all that time, I was doing it on my own. Although, you can listen to the podcast and read the stuff, but I kind of felt like I was on an island, which I was, even in like the CrossFit gym. Like I was different than they were, and I feel like I didn't really like fit in. It was more my fault than anyone else's. But I think that what changed is just having the support of a coach and a mastermind group and having people that are going through like common struggles. That's been huge. And then, there's something about becoming a mom and doing that at the same time as I'm trying to grow a business. It's like, that has just like shuttled me into this personal growth that I never knew that I even needed. So, reading the books and going to talk therapist and just doing better at reaching out for help when I need it. I'm not the best at that. I'm an introvert naturally. So a lot of things that come to growing and building a business, I hold myself back because of those things. So I guess the biggest thing is having the support of the mastermind group and having your coaching and just really digging into myself and being able to find that, learn, it's a daily practice, but have the affirmation from within and learn how to take those like ebbs and flows a little more lightly. So, not looking at my schedule and letting that deem how much I'm worth or how important am I and how good am I, but like being okay with it. And knowing that every step of the process is a necessary step of the process. And I don't think I could have done that if I was on my own still.
That's awesome.
To, like, navigate everything.
Yeah. What are you able to do differently now than you used to be when you're on your
own? I know where to look for answers. And, it's interesting. There's a lot of times I don't have questions for you, but it's almost like once you get coached, it's like, okay, what's Erin going to say? Or what would I say if somebody was asking me this question? How would I coach them? Because we can always help other people better than we can ourselves. I feel like. So I think just practicing being less reactive and trying to like fill, whatever your ego or your self-worth with external things, meaning like how full is your schedule and how many people are calling. And so, because that's something as a business owner, especially doing something different like we're doing, it would be unusual if you didn't enter those like roller coasters.
Have you noticed there's a certain roller coaster or like a roller coaster ride or message that you tell yourself that you get stuck in more often than others?
Like a,
it's like, my schedule's empty. I suck. I mean, that was me.
The common sentence I'll say to myself is like, this isn't going to work. Like what, like the personal training and trying to like get these memberships to kind of come to fruition. That would be what I would say a lot. Like, it's not going to work. This is why nobody's done this yet. This just doesn't work.
Right. Have you figured it out? Like, have you made it work?
No, I'm still figuring it out.
Yeah.
But, I think that just realizing that I don't have all the answers and I don't know exactly what business and every avenue is going to look like, but it's like evolving and it's like growing into what it's eventually going to be. And then it's always going to be evolving. Like I don't need to have all the answers now. And I don't need to have all the processes figured out. So that's helpful.
That's awesome. What would you say is the, Well, changing your thought process around how you run your business. I mean, I've seen it happen, and this happens with a lot of people. Like I start and I'm going to just like go get a job, like basically go start my own business, but really I'm building a job. I have patience
Right.
myself. What was the shift that it took for you to make to hire someone else or bring on other people and do what you're doing? And some of that happened, a while back, but you may be more aware of it now. Like, what's the shift that it took for you to not be afraid to actually like hire someone,
Let's see.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think I know what you're saying. I guess I think the biggest hiccup that we all run into is like, well, I don't have enough people coming through the door. I can't afford it. And I think that was the biggest thing that held me back. But then knowing, well, but I'm just going to continue the same, like being overbooked and like, I don't have time to do everything. Like something's got to give.
Yeah.
So you can't continue to wear all the hats forever. And I knew that. And I think just, the other piece of it was accepting that, going into debt is necessary, unless you're sitting on an inheritance or you have, some wealth and you have this big chunk of money to invest. That was something I needed to get my brain around because, my first debt and my first like business credit card was, to have you as my coach.
How'd you do that? Like, because a lot of people, like you said, like, tell me more, because a lot of people, like you have to go into debt to hire Caitlin.
Mm-hmm.
But I knew I was going to have to do that. A lot of people are like, they think that's bad. Like, what did you learn? Like, why is that necessary?
Well, a big reason why it was a struggle is because my mom's worked in banking for over 30 years. So I grew up with like, we balance our checkbooks. Mm-hmm. Everything needs to make sense. Like, don't spend what you don't have. And like, so I think just that thought of like, oh, is she going to like this? Like, is that going to be okay? What shifted it is that if I knew I wasn't going to take another path and I knew I wasn't going to work for somebody else, then I was going to have to like take steps that were scary and take risk. And I think that's what I just finally felt like it had to happen in order to grow. And if you have faith in what you're doing this for and like the reason, then it has to work. And if it doesn't, then you learn from it and like reformulate your next idea, I guess.
Right. Do you still have some debt right now or?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Does it feel okay? I mean, does it feel different or is it like, I don't know when I'm going to pay it back?
It feels okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think what was a struggle for me at first is because it was unique in that I was transitioning Stephanie into another position. Mm-hmm. So now I've got 2 people on payroll, right, and myself. And so my pay has taken a cut from that, like in the past year or so. But I think just it was a risk that I was willing to take because I didn't want to lose her as a coach. And so that was a growing period. We didn't have our schedule full and we still don't of trainings, but knowing that like, she's great at social media. So like using her skills to help fill our time while we don't have like clients or patients filling it.
Right. Do you see the payoff? I mean, have you experienced payoff so far and you see?
Oh yes. 1,000 times over.
Yeah. What's the payoff?
One big thing is just having a team, and I have this team now that like we all support this common vision, and we're working together and learning together, and because we do have we are growing and people are calling, and you do have people that appreciate and like get what you're doing. I think like every person that comes through that like either signs on for a full plan of care or becomes a member, it's like they're trusting us with a lot, and so we want to go above and beyond, and so that's made a big difference having a team.
Yeah, that's awesome. I would just want to hear from you. I'm sure people hear from me a lot if you watch my Instagram stories and Facebooks, but what would you say to someone who is, like probably finished PT school, 3 to 5 years ago, maybe still has a bunch of PT debt, debt from school, but they're trying to start a business and they don't want to put, as some expense or move into a bigger space or go into debt, whether it's getting a loan or just throwing it on a credit card, and they're afraid to go into debt. Like, what would you say to someone who's like trying to make that decision?
There are ways to do it you cannot go into debt. And if ultimately the goal is just to have a full schedule yourself and just to kind of create your own job, which there's like huge benefits to that versus working for someone, I think that's possible to save up and do. But if anyone has the idea of scaling and kind of also phasing out of, patient care or the main revenue generator of the business, like debt is a necessary thing. And debt is a form of leverage too. So you can't invest in a coach or invest in your own, continuing education sometimes without taking on a little debt. So I think it's just part of the process.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. What, here's the question I want to ask. So, and I know this from working with you, that you've raised your rates multiple times,
Yes.
right? And we worked on that.
Yes.
So I want to know, what did you learn? What are some of the lessons you learned from, raising your rates? What's the change you've seen? What's the reaction from some of your people?
I've learned a lot in that, like, initially I would tiptoe around it and I would wait. And you could ask, like, Stephanie would have been the witness to the first, like, couple rate raises where it's like, let's do it November 1st. Well, hold on. Let's do it November 15th because we don't have the email ready. And there was just always these little things and it was just fear of, I think what helped me get over that was not only like your coaching, but you're like, I think it was you that said, we go to the doctor and they've or your insurance has raised your copay, or at the time, my husband and I had a high deductible plan. So we would pay that out of pocket fee. So it'd be $100 to go to the doctor, or, you're paying $140 for a medication, that. And so I think like me experiencing that as a consumer was important, and that I still made the purchase or still went to the doctor. Like I wasn't negotiating that down, and nor did they give me a letter in the mail and I had like time to prepare for that. Like, I think that helped me just realize like, hey, this is part of business and starting out, which a lot of people were with me starting out. It was probably where my rates could have been part of the reason why I was so busy. But just knowing that, like the more that you invest in the systems and the better service you can deliver, that rate increase is necessary. And I think that's just something that's still a struggle sometimes.
Yeah.
Did you get stuck? Knowing that, the people that didn't follow through or that weren't like okay with it or gave me pushback, and you helped me with this, just knowing like they're, maybe at one point they were your right patient, but now maybe they're not. And that's hard for me, knowing that, like, because you get so close to people and talking about money with people is not fun. And I certainly didn't learn about that in school. Like, so it's an ongoing process.
Right. Did you get stuck somewhere with it? Was it like when your rates were lower, was it a problem, or was it just, was it keeping you from being able to do certain things, or was it just, okay, they're too low, I have to go up and I'm just going to take little steps?
Well, it was almost like I was treating myself and maybe comparing myself more to like the massage therapists. And I have a huge respect for massage therapists. But knowing the education and the investment that I made, I should have been setting myself apart. That's a different service than I'm offering. And I didn't have it priced that way. I didn't get pushback at those lower prices, not very much. I had packages. I mean, I would run discounts, and yeah, I think that answers your question.
What's different? So what's different now? Like, what's different now than then?
What's different now as far as when I
raised your rates? Yeah, because you raised your rates to a ballpark level that, you know, in the right, I feel like we're in the right playing field. You know, what's different now with your business?
Let's see. I feel, well, I can offer what I want to offer and invest the time in people that I know it takes without feeling any form of resentment or feeling just that, you know, I feel like the energy I put in, I'm getting in return. And the people that come through the door now are appropriate, and they know that the service is different than what they can get anywhere else. The other thing is, of course, I have the support of the group, and I think I just try to compare myself to other specialty professions, and knowing that, like, if I went to the dentist and they told me I needed a cavity filled or a root canal, what am I going to do? I'm going to pay it, right? I'm not going to like try to do it myself, or which is kind of what people do with PT. Maybe like
go to Lowe's and get a drill and be like, ah.
Yeah, and like, okay, it's like, oh, it's $1,000 or it's $2,000. That's expensive. Yeah, well, do I want my teeth? Yeah, I think so. So I think that's helped, just like practicing that mindset and knowing that like the dentist had it all figured out. Like we go every 6 months, and we don't wait until our teeth get dirty to go. We just go.
Right.
So I'm trying to change, I guess, and practice physical therapy in a similar way.
Yeah, that's awesome. What are your goals for the next 3 to 5 years? Like, what's next for you and your business?
For sure, hire another PT, or hire a PT. And that way I can take on and have more time to do like developing programs and workshops, and just marketing, and, you know, just all of the other things that it takes to run a business.
Right.
And then probably like a 2-year goal would be to have another trainer. And then just develop more of the program. So we're doing some, my trainer is a field hockey coach and has a lot of experience in field hockey. She played at a Division I college and coached in over a decade, and she's specific to goalies. So we have a little niche there that we're doing some like boot camps and some recovery camps. And so I'd like to see like that kind of program grow, because that's, I feel like youth athletics, at least here, I don't know if it's like that there, but the coaches, you know, they don't have the resources. And so a lot of these injuries can be prevented, and it's just not having the time to do the conditioning and the exercises that are necessary. So that's where we would fill in. I'd like to see the memberships grow. Yeah. I'd like to get more people, and kind of doing like a body total transformation, or not so much from the aesthetic side, but like, I feel like more times than not, I'm getting people through the door that it's not just shoulder. It's like 3 or 4 regions. And not only do they need PT, but they need to kind of learn how to move and get a hold of their body awareness and self-regulation. So it's like, that's where the PT and the training, or tailored training, kind of come together and help actually get people better and empower them to stay better.
Yeah.
So I'd like to see the memberships grow too.
That's awesome. That's really cool. Well, I know you keep up your tenacity and your, you know, like the fire that you have to keep going. Like, even though you are introverted and quiet, sometimes like you take tremendous action, and you have. So I know these things are going to like flush out. So, Julie, it's been awesome having you on the show, and thank you for sharing everything.
Thank you.
Yeah. If someone wants to learn more about your business or what you're doing, or even connect with you somewhere on social media, where's the best place to find you?
SergentWellness.com, and then on Instagram it's Sergent Wellness, and Facebook Sergent Wellness.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for being here. You know, this is a great episode. I thank you for coming and sharing, because I know it's going to be, and it's inspiring. Your story is inspiring to me. It's a slightly different path than I took. And I think it's just always great to share this with people. So
Yeah,
I
that was fun.
appreciate it. And congratulations on all your success. And for the CashPT Lunch Hour, this is Aaron LeBauer and Julie Sergent. If you guys got anything out of this episode, please share it with us. Even go leave a 5-star rating and review on iTunes. And we'll see you on the next episode. Thanks so much.